Welcome back to Inside City Hall. The Brooklyn Borough President's Office recently released its comprehensive plan for Brooklyn, geared toward improving housing and health outcomes for Brooklynites. The plan goes into detail about the demographics of every neighborhood in the borough, analyzing everything from which communities are more at risk of flooding to the areas with fewest transportation options. The suggestions included in the plan come from 4 different angles: improving housing growth, building healthcare resources, making neighborhoods more accessible, and contributing to resilient infrastructure and jobs. Joining me now to break down more of this is Antonio Reynoso. He is Brooklyn's Borough President. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Always a lot of fun.
So a lot of politicians put out reports. This is a very big, ambitious one, 201 pages, chock full of maps and data and recommendations. A particular focus on healthcare and on housing. Are those the 2 big problems that you're trying to solve for?
I do think we want to solve for those. When zoning was invented, it was invented just to separate people from like manufacturing uses back in the day. And health was at the foundation of why zoning was created. So we thought we'd just go back to our roots and get back to planning and zoning, being able to assist people in health outcomes. So that was the foundation of the work we were doing, and we thought it made a lot of sense after COVID that that's the work we would do. So health was absolutely important, and then we would be lying to anyone to not say there's a crisis of housing in the city of New York, and it's the most pressing issue that we're dealing with right now.
And a lot of people, when they talk about increasing housing stock in the city, it's about changing zoning in different neighborhoods around the city, but your take on it is that that's thinking too small, right?
Absolutely. Right now, this city zones, it doesn't plan. And it builds I call it the second floor bathroom gets built before the foundation of the house. And what we're doing is a blueprint. It's just being very thoughtful about how we're building and where we're building, when we're building, what needs are in our community, and how we can start addressing those issues in a thoughtful, comprehensive way. And I'll just give one example. Right now in Bay Ridge, we're building a ton of schools, 5 schools in Bay Ridge in the next year, because there's a need for seats. But Bay Ridge hasn't built any housing over the last 60 years. I think they've built 80 units or some sort. And the reason they need new schools is because they have a lot of doubling up and tripling up of homes that we have through census data. So if we would have looked at that data and that information early on in the process, we would have known that we should have been building schools 10 years ago and having a more paced out development of schools in Bay Ridge instead of doing it all in one shot and looking for buildings to build these schools randomly. It's just like we're looking at information to make decisions. We're not going to use political pressures. We're not going to use personal experiences. We have the data. Why not use it? This city doesn't work that way. Brooklyn will.
And the disparities are interesting too, like with the housing in Bay Ridge, then you compare it to someplace like East New York, where there's been a ton of housing built. And also, one of the most interesting ones with health disparities was life expectancy.
Yes.
In some areas of Brownsville and Eastern Brooklyn, life expectancy is like 76 years old. And then you look at areas like Park Slope and Carroll Gardens, and it's like 83 years old. That's a huge change.
Yeah, we believe the built environment is a part of what causes that. It's not just individual health histories or track record. It's where you live actually matters in Brooklyn, and it's sad because we're not talking about Brooklyn to Alabama. We're talking about Brownsville to Park Slope and the discrepancy there when it comes to life expectancy, and that you could literally die 10 years sooner than somebody in Park Slope just because of where you live. So it is a big problem and something we want to address, and we can address through good planning.
Use of streets is another issue that gets people kind of riled up. I mean, your report covers everything from bike lanes and street usage and parking, including residential parking permits, which is something that's been talked about for a long time in neighborhoods all over the city. This would implement it for the first time in Brooklyn.
Yes, it would, and it's very practical. Right now, if you go outside and you're looking for a parking spot, you will pass by 50% of the vehicles, a significant amount of the vehicles have Pennsylvania plates, New Jersey plates, Miami plates, Ohio. It's all over the country. Obviously, that's a scam. It's an insurance scam that folks are using to pay less insurance. What we're saying is, if you live in a neighborhood and you own a car, we're going to give you priority for these parking spaces outside and not for the people outside. That could solve a lot of our parking issues. But parking's a problem because we have too many cars in New York, and we got to start advancing policies for alternatives in transportation to vehicles like buses, trains, cycling, and walking. And we haven't been doing a great job at that. We just found out this has been the deadliest year for bike riders in New York City, and we're going backwards on Vision Zero. So what I'm trying to address is if we comprehensively work this out and we have a plan from now to 20 years that we're building out infrastructure to keep us safe for everyone, all users, we can get there, but we don't plan. Everything is done in silos, everything is done in pieces, and I want to break that up and start doing work that's thoughtful.
And to be clear, these proposals are, for the most part, way outside the scope of your office. Yeah. And by the way, on that topic, you recently announced you're going to divert some of the resources of your office, right? The Brooklyn Borough President does a lot of ceremonial events, celebrations, and you're not doing that anymore.
No, it was during Hispanic Heritage Month celebration. We were going to a big party. We had music, we had food, we had drinks, people were going to dance, and we just thought celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. And we have a significant amount of Hispanics living under tents, sleeping in cots. It just wasn't, it didn't feel right. And it's not who I am. Celebrating is valuable and important, but it is not more important than bringing services to Brooklynites that need it. So we decided that on that day we made an announcement. We are now moving away from celebrations and moving into office of service. So we're going to celebrate through service. So now I'll give an example. Instead of celebrating the Independence Day of Jamaica, we're going to go to where the most Jamaicans live in Brooklyn, and we're going to give them food through a food pantry service, or give books to their young children, or fill out SNAP benefits that are taking longer than ever for people to be able to get food stamps. So that's the work we're going to start doing now, and moving away from the more ceremonial celebration type events that folks are used to seeing Borough Hall do.
That's new job duties for some of your staffers, right?
And they're very excited. A lot of folks get into this business because they want to do public service, and then they walk into Borough Hall and they're throwing parties. And I think those parties mattered when Marty Markowitz was here, because no one wanted to move to Brooklyn. Everyone was scared of Brooklyn. And he just highlighted the greatness of Brooklyn through celebrating the culture and the heritage that we have, and the beauty of Brooklyn. But now we have a Brooklyn cupcake in like France. Everybody knows Brooklyn, it's a brand. The need to celebrate it is not there anymore. But my staff is very excited, and they've never been more eager or energized to do this service work versus the celebratory work.
Just quickly before we go, you often find yourself at odds with the mayor, and recently you were particularly critical of the response to the heavy rains that we saw a couple weeks ago, and there was flooding in different parts of Brooklyn. You thought the city wasn't responsive enough.
Yeah, I just made a statement that we should look into whether or not we need to change the way we communicate with people about crises like this. And what we got back was that we were living under a rock because we didn't know it was happening. And I just think it's hard to make progress and get better if you can't reflect. And I just hope that the mayor's office takes some time and just improve upon the work that they're doing. If they think they're doing a good job, let's start working to do a great job. So it's not going after the mayor, it's just Brooklyn was underwater, and I needed to fight for it, and that's what I was doing, trying to do my best so that next time we're better prepared.
All right, Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso, thank you so much for coming in and joining us.
Always happy to be here.
All right, it's time for a break. Coming up, I will analyze